Hi, I'm Aaron. Today, we're at SMP in Białystok, Poland, and we're going to be putting 4 ignition coils to the test. First, we're going to start by testing the OE coil. Then, Blue Streak by standard. Third, we're going to test a low-quality, low-cost coil. And finally, we're going to test a coil from a premium aftermarket competitor. Helping us out today is ignition coil engineer Marcin. I thank Marcin. Now let's get testing. The 4 coils we're testing all fit the same application, the Ford 4.6 liter and 5.4 liter V8. For our first test of the day, we're going to measure discharge duration. Now, this is really, in milliseconds, how long an ignition coil is going to fire the spark for. So, the first thing we're going to do is test the OE coil to establish a benchmark. Marcin? Okay, now what are we seeing here?
We see secondary current, which discharge duration lasts for 0.99 milliseconds.
Okay, so just less than 1 millisecond.
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and put the Blue Streak by standard coil on and see what that looks like. All right, now this looks different to me. What are we seeing here?
It is 1.12 milliseconds.
All right, so what does that mean on the vehicle?
It means that we have more efficient combustion.
Okay.
Stable spark, the spark plug.
Okay. Let's go ahead and put on the low-cost coil and see if that looks different.
Okay.
Wow, that's a lot shorter.
Yes.
So what?
Measure the value.
That's even a lot shorter than OE, isn't it?
Yes, it is 0.69 milliseconds.
Wow.
It's over 20% less.
It's almost 30% less than OE almost, right? Yeah. So it's a lot shorter. So what does that mean when it's actually on the vehicle?
We can have incomplete combustion of the fuel-air mixture, which can cause the reduced horsepower and increased exhaust gas emissions.
Now let's go ahead and put on the last unit. That's the premium aftermarket competitor.
Okay.
Well, that's a little better than the low-cost coil, isn't it?
Yeah, it's better. Okay, it's 0.84 milliseconds.
0.84. So that's still about 15% less than OE, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
All right, now let's do a little more testing. The coils are on the testing machine. Now we're going to test for spark energy. This is really the amount of energy in millijoules each coil is capable of producing during normal driving conditions. Of course, the higher the better. So what are we seeing here?
We are seeing the values of the spark energy of each coil.
Okay.
For example, the first OE1 has the value of 29.9 millijoules.
Okay.
Blue Streak by standard has value 31.1 millijoules. The third one, low-cost competitor, has a value of 29.2 millijoules.
Okay.
And the last aftermarket competitor has a value of 29.0 millijoules.
So what does that mean when it's on the vehicle?
With higher spark energy, coil may not need to work as hard.
So if it doesn't need to work as hard in normal driving, does that mean it can, will that help it last longer on the vehicle?
Yes, for example.
Okay, cool. Now, let's go ahead and turn up the heat on this oven and see how these perform under high heat conditions. Okay, now we've been running all 4 coils at the same time in this high heat oven to simulate real world underhood conditions. And it looks like one of them has failed.
Yeah, the part number 3 failed this test.
Which one was 3?
It was low-cost competitor.
Oh, okay, low cost. I've got an idea. Can we cut these all open, take a look inside and see if we can figure out why it failed?
Sure, no problem.
Cool, let's do it. Well, Marcin got these all cut open for us, so let's take a look inside.
Yeah, here we have the OE part. We can see the magnetic core is solid. We have 5 sections on the secondary coil.
Okay.
The blue streak part has similar magnetic core as OE part, but we have 7 sections on the secondary bobbin.
So what did the additional bobbin sections do?
This provides better distribution of the secondary voltage and the spark energy.
Well, this one looks different.
Yeah, this is low cost competitor part.
Okay.
We can see different shape of the magnetic core.
Gotcha.
And we have 8 sections on the secondary coil. Probably they try to compensate these losses in the magnetic core in the secondary winding.
Okay, you know, funny enough, this one looks totally different than everything else. It was also the one that failed the durability test. Okay.
The last one is aftermarket competitor part.
Okay.
We can see very similar shape of the magnetic core as the OE part. We have 5 sections on the secondary coil.
Okay, well, I thought this was really interesting. You know, the big takeaway for me is that even though ignition coils may look all about the same on the outside, there's real differences to how they're constructed, and that affects how they perform on the vehicle and how long they last. I think for me, the one really interesting takeaway was the Blue Streak coil. It performed better in terms of spark energy and discharge duration. We saw that it is constructed a little bit differently. And I think it's important to remember that the OE coil is okay. It tested okay. It really establishes the benchmark, but that coil's built for vehicles with no miles. Brand new engines is what that's designed for. With the Blue Streak coil, has a little bit longer discharge duration, a little bit more spark energy, and that's really going to help compensate for age, miles driven, really just higher mileage vehicles, that little bit of extra performance. So I think there's certainly a big difference in the coils that are available today in the aftermarket, and I hope you learned something too.